Hello and welcome to another edition of the Door 14 Hockey Podcast. As usual, I'm your host Marty alongside Dave.
Hello.
That's it, just the two of us, as Will Smith once sang. We are a very depleted panel tonight. Aaron is missing due to the Door 14 COVID protocol, and John unfortunately had to have, I think, was it emergency dental work or something, or
Yeah,
and
had to
his
have
face
another
is.
woman's hand in his mouth or something, I heard.
Uh, yeah, that's that's exactly how it was put this morning as I was driving to Ballymena, and I was like, okay, don't crash the car. Um, we hope both of you feel better soon. I think this is, unfortunately, I think this is Aaron's second bout of COVID. So hopefully he doesn't have it just as bad this time around. I know it was going around his house, especially during the big move last week or the week before.
I'm really looking
Um,
forward to seeing his office.
I know, me too. I know, haven't seen anything yet. We'll just have to wait in suspense for a bit longer. Dave, how you doing? You're in a
Ah,
new office. You're in the new
yeah, I'm in
surroundings.
my new converted office. So it's out of a bedroom into a proper office. It's a godsend. I'm sure the audio quality is a little bit better, maybe a bit of an echo, but there's no kids screaming and shouting in the background.
Just the odd dog wag. You might hear the dog
Yes, that's it.
wagging
Yeah.
around. That's about it. For anybody who's not watched this right now on our YouTube channel, Dave is sitting in his new office, and it is a beautiful blue wall, with a nice surroundings around him. There, it was looks
Mhm.
good. Looks good.
Lovely,
We
lovely
also.
handbag hanging on the door apparently, which I didn't realize was there.
Speaking of other things that are in sight, I see you're currently wearing maybe some
Yeah.
counterfeit products.
Nice counterfeit T-shirt.
Yeah,
Um, get it while it's hot, as they say.
definitely hot. Looks good. The Giants should definitely be thinking about bringing out those. Looks like
Totally.
a good one anyway.
I don't get it. Like the whole, especially aren't isn't wasn't the sockies made by Warrior as well? Anyway,
Yep.
you would think it would be a fairly easy turnaround, but hey ho.
Hey ho, indeed. It has been 2 weeks since our last podcast. We have a few stories. It seems to be quite quiet in the world of ice hockey this week. Well, in some fronts, in some other areas, mainly over across the pond in the States, there's been several news stories that are worth talking about, which we will talk about later on in this episode, both in period 2 and in period 3. But before we get to that, we're going to start the episode as we normally do, and we will run through the current standings in the Elite Ice Hockey League, followed by the NHL. Starting on in the UK, the Premier Sports Elite Ice Hockey League, we have sitting at the top still Sheffield Steelers in first place with 26 games played and 43 points. Cardiff are in second with 29 games played and 41 points, and Belfast are in third with 26 games played and 38 points. Nottingham follow then in fourth with 26 games played and 27 points. Glasgow fifth with 23 games played and 23 games played and 23 points. Guildford in sixth with 27 games played and 23 points. Dundee are in seventh with 24 games played and 21 points. Coventry in eighth with 21 games played and 20 points. Manchester in ninth with 27 games played, 20 points, and Fife Flyers in the bottom still with with 25 games played and 13 points. Dave, we usually pass it around to each other, but we'll just, I suppose, just have a bit of a general chat, get your thoughts in terms of what you're thinking of the standings at the moment.
Yeah.
Not much change there at the top. Sheffield, Cardiff still sitting top, or sorry, Sheffield, Cardiff, and the Giants still sitting there top three spaces. Doesn't look like there's much movement anytime soon.
Yeah, it's you're really starting to see that top three pack start to make a bit of a push now at the top. 10 points or 11 points now between Giants and Nottingham. It's a bit crazy. Um, I misheard you when you were going through the standings there. I thought you said Shitfield, but obviously not.
No, if I did, that was completely accidental, and I didn't leave that to be the one that said. But okay.
um, but yeah, the league is it's a bit of a outlier this season. It is so competitive, and long may it continue. It's the best way for it to be. It's still very strange seeing Fife so far down the table, because I have to say I think they've been playing really well and just not quite closing out games. A lot of close games, a lot of one or two goals here or there. It's I would love to see them get a bit more in. And Guildford, I could have swore they were doing a lot better than they are. Um,
I
seems
was about
something
to
must have happened or something. I don't know.
I was about to say they seem to have gotten into a bit of a, I don't know, like a little bit of a spiral there. As you were saying, we were talking a few weeks ago. They were sitting in fourth place, I think, straight after
Yeah,
kind of in that contention area. But yeah, they've definitely dropped away. And one team as well that has completely climbed since our last chat was Glasgow. Glasgow
yeah.
have now climbed into fifth place. I think if I remember correctly, in our last podcast during our last recording, I think they're maybe sitting down in around eighth or ninth spot. You know, they were
Yeah.
right down there. I suppose they had a lot of games to play, and there was a bit of concern initially around how were Glasgow going to fulfill all of those dates that they had missed, but they seem to be
They're
putting
now in the
back.
mix, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, 23 games played. I mean, there's 3 games behind, the likes of Sheffield and Belfast and
And
Nottingham.
they're 2 games above Coventry. I didn't. Coventry's COVID protocol must have hit them hard game wise, but
Yeah,
they've fallen back a bit.
yeah. As you say, Coventry sitting there in eighth with still with 21 games played. So obviously you're looking at what are 8 games difference between the most played games and the least played games. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely it's definitely turning into a very interesting part of this season. But a lot of congestion still, as we talked about in previous podcast. And that will hit hard soon for a lot of these teams, especially as you mentioned Coventry, who I can only imagine they're going to be hit with a lot of games to try and fill in
Yeah.
such a short space of time. Um, so I don't know if there's anything else really to say about the league at the moment. Other
No,
than
obviously since our last podcast, I think the Cardiff game that we in Belfast was in our last, and what a game that was.
yeah,
Um, I didn't watch the away leg of that. Obviously, it didn't come out the way we wanted, but that home game was like watching like a proper playoff game. Like it was unreal.
that
Um,
that game was definitely for me. There's something special about that game. As you say, something special about that game. It was a tense game. Obviously it was a very close fought game, but it
yeah,
was such a tense game, and that obviously we'll not get into it too much. But the whole controversy, the laptop controversy, shall we say,
yeah,
which I don't think there was actually a laptop used at any point, but I think someone mentioned it as kind of like a tongue in cheek joke, and fans kind of went, "What? Another laptop?" It was
yeah.
just it kind of went off the rails a bit, but I think we'll leave Laptop Gate where it is, and we won't bring it into it much more. Um, I'll swing across and we'll cross the pond and we'll look over towards the NHL direction. I'm gonna confess I haven't really focused too much on the NHL in this past 2 weeks. I just haven't had any time whatsoever to sit down and watch any highlights back or watch any of the games. So I'm completely this is all completely new in terms of the standings and stuff and how things are progressing over there. But we'll start where we need to start. We'll look over at the Eastern Conference first and the Metropolitan Division. Sitting top there are the New York Rangers with 43 games played and 60 points, followed by Pittsburgh with 42 games played and 59 points, and Carolina in third with 39 games played and 58 points. Over in the Atlantic Division, then Florida sit top still with 43 games played at 63 points. Tampa in second with 43 games played and 61 points, and Toronto sitting in third still with 39 games played and 55 points. Wildcard spots currently held by Washington and Boston. Over across the country, then on the western side of things, in the Central Division, Colorado sit top with 41 games played and 63 points. Nashville are in second with 44 games played and 57 points, and St. Louis are sitting in third with 42 games played and 55 points. In the Pacific Division, Vegas sit top still with 43 games played and 53 points, followed closely by Anaheim with 45 games played and 50 points, and Los Angeles still sitting in third with 43 games played and 48 points. Wildcard spots are held by Minnesota and Calgary. Dave, Minnesota still sitting there in the wildcard
Yeah.
spots.
Still a lot of games in hand as well. Three wins in the trot and a big win against Montreal. Obviously, they're not having a great run right now. It was 8-1. It was unreal. Like it got to the point where I was watching the highlights. I didn't get to see it live, obviously, but watching the highlights, and Krill was just showboating. He was trying wee backhand shots from between his legs and all. Like he missed them, but it was just he had so much room in the slot that he could just. It looked like an all-star game at one point.
Yeah,
There is something wrong in Montreal, and they really need to have a good think about it. It's uh, it's not often that you see the Wild run up a score like that. It's not normally. It's not how they're structured. They're structured with a more defensive game, and that's why you usually see a tight game. But eight goals, like tough.
Montreal, as you say, they're just awful form, awful form. It's we talk quite usually we talk quite normally about surprise teams being in certain surprise areas. We talk about the likes of I made no bones about it last podcast. I said about obviously I highlighted the likes of the LA Kings sitting where they were and what a surprise that was, and I talked about obviously the likes of the Florida and
Oh,
how they have
yeah,
such a good surge this year. And again, no offense and no derogatory offenses towards the Florida Panthers, but that's not where you expect the team to be because they haven't been there for such a long time. But
yeah.
if we flip the coin and we look at the other side of things, I mean, you don't expect to see the likes of Montreal sitting in 10th place with 23 points in 41 games on a minus 64 diff. I mean,
Uh,
it's I think
Chicago as well. I was talking to someone, I think it was someone online. I'm really certain that the Wild have swept the Blackhawks
mhm,
in the league games. Like that's unheard of. Again, they've dropped down, and it's that, are they in a rebuild? Have they decided to tank a few games and just see how it goes? You never know. But it must be hard for fans to go through that. I know that Andy, my brother, he's obviously a Detroit fan, and the last couple of seasons they were dead last for a while, and it's a hard watch, um, but it's that they haven't really came out of that, and it seems to be
no.
years now.
Yeah, and if we're looking at the other side of the country in terms of the bottom last, we're obviously looking at Arizona, and Arizona are having
Mhm.
their own difficulties, but we are going to talk about that in period two. I think there's a fresh off the presses news release tonight, or at least a rumor of a news release or something, but we'll talk about that in period two. But they're just as bad. I think they're maybe only slightly doing worse with a minus 66 differential, you know what I mean? But 24 points, so they're doing slightly better. But again, not great at all. John and Aaron aren't here to discuss their teams, and John, obviously, with Nashville still sitting there in contention, still sitting in second place, just under Colorado, just dropping down one place. But
Philadelphia on a losing winning streak. I just seen that. Oof.
yeah, it's tough. All I'll say about Toronto is obviously we're still holding in, still sitting where we're sitting, sitting in third. We still have, I think we're 4 games. I think maybe potentially, yeah, at least 4 games. I think behind Tampa and Florida.
Yeah,
So nothing too concerning. Obviously, someone, as John I think it was pointed out in the last podcast, you'd rather have the points in the bank than points to gain. But there's still an argument to be said that you still have every opportunity to gain those points and have an upper hand when you have some games in hand.
yeah.
So,
Me and
you
John
know,
talk about this every year. This is another thing. See that Central Division with John and I are in it. It's a complete bloodbath every year. So we're sitting, like, the Wild sitting on 53 points, which is the same as Vegas, which is top of the Pacific, and the Wild sitting there struggling to get into the wild card, So it's that whole thing's a bit. There seems to be a big discrepancy between the Central and the Pacific, which is always a bit of a nightmare. But it is what it is, and we'll just have to work through it.
indeed. We will obviously be getting in towards we're heading towards February next. We're at the tail end of January now. We're heading into February. And right enough, it'll be soon enough. We'll be looking at those spots and those wild card spots in more detail. Definitely taking more of attention to them. Come towards the tail end of the season when it comes towards March, April time. So it is starting to heat up there in the NHL. So we will be keeping an eye on that. Dave, I think that's a roundup really of all of the standings that we need to look at for now.
It's
So
good.
I think what we'll do is we will get stuck into our period one of hockey and start talking some news.
Whoop, whoop.
Okay, period one is a roundup of just of any of the stories from that are hitting the headlines or getting our attention in the world of ice hockey in the UK. Start off, I suppose, starting with some good news. Finally, for a lot of fans, both in Scotland and in Wales, in Cardiff, and that is, of course, that as of since our past recording, the Scottish government, the Scottish not the government, yeah, the Scottish government, the Scottish what are they called there? They called the Scottish. What are they?
The
Scottish Football.
executive, is it?
Are they executive over there? I don't know. I
Or
think well, the
assembly?
executive
One of the
anyway.
two.
Assembly, yeah. But anyway, they've made it. They made a the COVID. They announced that the COVID-19 restrictions were to be eased, which meant that all nightclubs and large indoor events would be resuming with social distancing rules being dropped. This change did come into effect, this past Monday, so the 24th of January. So this coming weekend, we'll see a lot of for the first time since around Christmas time, fans of both of Dundee, Braehead, and Fife, not Braehead, sorry, Glasgow and Fife, being able to return to their significant rinks and enjoy hockey in person. Obviously, this is big and great news for those teams. I know they were supported, I believe, from a package of finance that came through from the Scottish government to help support them in the time whenever they weren't away. I believe that came through there since our last recording too. But this is just, I suppose, Dave. I mean, this has to be great news and a great sigh of relief for those teams.
Yeah, I know that whenever, and for us, to be fair, with our away
True.
trip planned,
Yeah.
but it must be like especially for Cardiff having to play those games behind closed doors. I know that Todd's getting a really nice package out for their season ticket holders. That doesn't really help the people that would have been walk-ups and things like that, missing out in those games, and they're missing out in revenue they'll never really get back. I know that they're getting money from their assembly, but I doubt it's going to match the ticket sales. And we know that the Elite League is such a ticket-driven um, league or market, whatever you want to put it. But yeah, it's an absolute godsend. Cardiff thrive on that home experience. We were at the last few games, the last game of the Big Blue Tent, and it was bonkers. And I'm sure that that's continued on into their new arena. It makes a massive difference when your fans are behind you, and it must be so eerie to play with silence. I know that whenever the NHL did it, sure they piped in crowd noise and all sorts to make it feel a bit more like a game environment, but I'm sure it's not the same. But
No,
yeah,
I can imagine for those players, and I can only imagine what it must be like playing in those rinks. It must be feeling like what it's like whenever they go to like a practice rink and they're playing on a practice rink. It must be so weird to think about. As you mentioned, obviously the Welsh government did bring in the restrictions on the 21st of December, so they have been playing for the last 6 weeks or so with nothing in terms of spectators attending the sports. The first home game for the Cardiff Devils will be this coming weekend. I believe that is on Saturday. I think no, or Friday. I think maybe Friday against Fife Flyers. So that'll be this
Flyers,
coming
yeah.
weekend. So I'm sure Todd will have something special up his sleeve to welcome everyone back into the rink or the arena anyway in Cardiff there. But yeah, as you say, Dave, it is a bit of a selfish thing for us in terms of we're now pretty much excited in the fact that we had planned our trip to Scotland. We had planned it quite a while back,
Hmm.
and we were planning to do a double header of sorts, going to see Dundee and Fife in February. I think it's the second week of February. Yep.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah,
Valentine's weekend.
we're gonna have a nice romantic Valentine's weekend together. Yeah, yeah.
Um,
And
I can't
I
wait to be fair.
guess
Like,
I can't either. And now that we know that the games are going ahead, well, I suppose we were still going to kind of go and just
yeah,
hang out at John's house and maybe get the webcasts and have some takeaway. And well, no, actually, he told us we can't get takeaway where he lives.
you can't get takeaway and you can't get a
Where are we?
taxi. I don't know what sort of place this
I
is.
know. Where are we going? We've been before. It's okay. We've been before. They have a nice tavern with like
That's it.
cheaper
Four
drinks. So
seats.
four seats. That's all we need.
That's all we need.
Um, so I mean, we're looking forward to it, and we're just really thankful, I suppose, that that's happening. But even more so, I'm sure the fans of those respective teams are
Yeah.
a massive sigh of relief to see that coming along.
Is it your? It's definitely my first time in Dundee. Not Dundee, the city. I've been in the city before, but first time at a game. In Dundee.
I've never been to the city or a game, so this will be the first time
I think I
in
drove through
Dundee.
it once, going somewhere.
This will be the first time,
Um,
so be good.
looking forward to it. Take another great rink off the list. Need to get to Coventry at some stage.
Yeah,
Take that one off.
and
Guildford.
also Guildford. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, we'll get those done at some
Um,
point in our future. Um, Speaking of Guildford, that's a nice segue.
hey.
Hey, so looked like you knew where I was going next. Guildford this week did announce that they are releasing a new jersey this coming weekend against the Coventry Blaze. So they're going to have a blue replica available on Sunday, the February 20th home match. So there's two jerseys coming out, two new jerseys. Now, I my question is, like, they're announcing these jerseys, and they've done a kind of like a jersey launch for these jerseys. Are these special edition anniversary jerseys, or are they just general jerseys that they're only launching now? I was a bit
They don't
confused about this
look.
story.
They don't really look anything different. Or am I a bit blind? Or are they totally different?
Well, they don't, and this is what confused me. So I'm gonna just check it up here because I don't want to sound like I'm dumb. And maybe a Gifford fan can point us in the right direction. But there is a new jersey coming in. And it's supposed to be. I don't know if it's. I don't know if it's that they have never had a. So the story seems to be that it's a late arrival. Um, I suppose the Flames had finally received their traditional Stitch Pro jerseys, normally worn for all league matches, but they have only received them now. So I think my belief in is they've waited 35 weeks in total for the jerseys to arrive. The design's slightly updated to give a different look, but my belief is maybe they've been using a jersey that's an older version jersey up until this point. Now that
Oh,
was my take on it. Now I don't know if I'm wrong. I think that's what my take was, is that they actually haven't they're doing a jersey launch now because it's because they hadn't actually received the jerseys when they were supposed to receive the jerseys at the start of the season. Now it is a 70
oh,
year.
I.
That's I am confused because it does
Oh, I
seem to
see
be
the.
a
I do see the. There's a thing on the shoulder.
70 year or something. It does seem to be
30 year.
a
30 year.
30 year. Sorry,
Yeah,
is it 30?
30. Yeah.
30. So it does
1991 to 2022.
it does seem to be a jersey that does seem to be an anniversary jersey. So I don't know if I'm wrong, but from the story that I was reading, I think it might actually be this jersey they're supposed to have from the start of the season, which just never turned up.
That's
Um,
wild.
now I could be wrong, but what I find more interesting about this, and I think I asked you this question before we came on to the podcast, is we'd always historically always kind of known, or kind of always were told, or I suppose we were led to believe by others, that the Guildford Flames jerseys were shirt off the back, well, auction or shirt off back only.
Only,
They're only
yeah.
auction jerseys, and you were never able to buy a replica jersey. All to do with the whole thing, to do with the G on the front looking similar to the Calgary Flames, and that whole stuff. But they do say in their tweet that they are available for replicas. They are available to order, and if
Okay.
you're able to buy. So is it a change of stance? Are Guildford now able to sell their own home jerseys and no longer
You would
need
like to
their?
hope so. Like, it's, if that was the case and they weren't allowed to, they've been around for 30 years. Like, if someone was going to stop them from using the logo, they would have stepped in long before now, I would assume. Um, and if you don't, this is my armchair lawyering. I'm nearly certain if a company doesn't defend its trademark, they lose the ability to defend that trademark. And if it's been 30 years, well, I would say they haven't defended it very well. Um, so you would assume that they've maybe decided just to sell them. Again, being around for so long, and I think they've had that same logo because I
Mm,
found yeah, there's like pictures here from back in the day, and they definitely look like slightly different colors, but the same logo. Like so, um, yeah, you'd assume that's they're just selling replicas now. And thank Christ, because remember the auction prices used to come out once a year, and they were like thousands of pounds for some of them.
yeah, I know. And the prices were. We talked about this. Remember, I think it was maybe a couple of years back, maybe about 2 or 3 years back. John, at the end of the season, John did a tally of how much the jerseys were selling for in terms of the
That's right.
auction, and it was significantly higher than any other team in the Elite Ice League. Now you could say it's just because their fans are hardcore and just want to spend a lot of money on it, but but it was really just because it's hard to come across a jersey, I guess. And I think that was clearly it was clear whenever it came to the amount that was raised from the auction. So yeah, it must be finally they're selling some replicas, and I'm sure again that'll be a bit of an easier time, I suppose, for a lot of fans instead of having
Yeah.
to wait
I,
until times at certain
I'm
times.
sure a Guildford fan will correct us if we were wrong. That no, they've
Yep.
been able to buy replicas all along, and this is just a change in jersey for the
And
anniversary or something. You know? We were
and
completely wrong.
it's just that someone has obviously led us astray at some point, and
That's it.
we believe that lie. So
Yep.
yeah, apologies if we got it wrong. I have one last story for this period. This period is fluent because there's very little stories going on.
Well,
But
John's not here to distract us.
we're gonna turn our attention across to actually the junior game in the UK, and this is a statement that has been put out by the EIHA over the past. Well, this came out I think yesterday actually or today, so it's pretty new. But as of the statement they have put out has is to do around safeguarding and parent behaviour at junior games across the UK. They stated that over the past few weeks, the EIHA have received a number of complaints concerning the behaviour of minority of parents, particularly at junior games around the country. The complaints have ranged from general poor behaviour, such as abuse being shouted at children during games, applauding and cheering when a player is down injured, and abuse directed at officials to the most extreme complaint where threats are being made to junior players. They've went
Whoa.
on to say these types of behaviour are unacceptable in any sport, including ice hockey, but even more so when the sport involves children. With this in mind, the EIHA wishes to remind all parents that they sign a code of conduct with their club when they register their children to play, and failing to follow the code of conduct and the EIH rules can lead to action against parents, but ultimately their children being unable to play the game of ice hockey. EIHA Director Barry Archer, who is the lead of both disciplinary and safeguarding for the association, has said that it is sad to know that the conduct of a minority of our parents is bringing the game into disrepute and affecting the children playing this sport. Ice hockey is a family sport, and children should be able to enjoy playing the game without suffering or being a witness to such poor behaviour, which we would not accept from these kids playing the game. I mean,
That's wild.
it's crazy that they've had to put out a statement. I mean, you think, I'm not a parent, but I have common sense. And my common sense tells me that if a child is playing a sport and you're watching that sport, no matter how passionate you might be about that sport and about your child playing that sport, you don't shout abuse at a child, no matter what age that
No.
child is. If they're a junior, if they're a minor, if they're underage, and they fall into the category of a junior or a child, why would you shout abuse at a child on an ice at a game? It just doesn't make sense to me whatsoever.
It's such a it's and it's starting to like that sort of mentality. Yes, I get it. No, I don't get it. That sort of getting a bit riled up, fair enough. But the one about cheering whenever a kid goes down injured, it's like, geez, you wouldn't do that at a senior game.
No.
And the Giants are getting to the point where they're becoming a not welcoming place for away teams, but they don't get anywhere near this bad. Some of this stuff is nuts, and you see it more and more and more, like all together, like in different sports and everything. There's this sort of the toxic culture seems to creep in. You see it. I was watching, I can't remember, it was a stand-up video, um, and someone came up and started complaining about the language of the comedian. It's like, well, but like in the middle of it, got up on stage and all, and just started hurling abuse at the person, and it's just like, when did people suddenly think that they had to have an input into all this stuff? You sit back and enjoy it, and the same goes for sport. Enjoy the game, cheer along, but you don't get involved yourself.
Yeah, no, I agree, and it's actually something I'm going to come back to something you did say there, that I picked up on because I was going to ask this question, and it kind of also falls in with another announcement that was put out, and I just wanted to kind of highlight this announcement too. Another statement that been put out this week in relation to offensive comments and I suppose inappropriate comments being made, and you're talking about the toxic environment that seems to be being created at the moment. I mean, do you feel that? Do you kind of feel like from looking at the social media channels, looking at the different forums, seeing people interacting with each other in the rinks? Do you feel that there is a change to the environment, and do you think it has become a bit more toxic and a bit more
Yeah,
like?
it has definitely became. There's obviously the stuff that came out of Fife, which we're probably not going to go into detail on because we don't want to give that the people that caused that airtime. But they're having to basically censor, make a comment that you have to, be smart. When you say these things online or all that jazz, you are still responsible for what you write down. Like people wouldn't say some of those stuff to people's faces, but they're happy to hide behind social media. But definitely I think that the over time as the leagues got older, there's an element of rivalry that has went from being just a friendly rivalry to people really disliking um, the club, other clubs, and then that spills in to the games. But as long as everyone can leave it at the door, you know, cheer and get on. But then when the game's over. There's no point in still badgering on about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely got like when we started in the league, you would have got the odd person whining and moaning after a game, but now it just seems to be entire fan bases are going at each other for the whole evening um, until the next game. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I'm not saying friendly rivalry and a bit of heated debate and a bit of friendly banter back and forth, or I'm not saying that that's not appropriate. I'm not saying that that's not wanted, because it is. There is a level. There's a certain level that you kind of think to yourself, no, that's fine. We joke around with other fans. We kind of have a bit of thing, but at the end of the day, you could still go and have a pint with the person, in the bar, and have a bit of a
Yeah,
chat over the game or whatever it is, like what you used to do in the past. Well, you can't drink at the moment anyway because obviously COVID, but um, but it does seem to be a subtle change or a different feeling towards
yeah,
like what the fan group seems to be. And Dave, I will touch upon just what you mentioned there with Fife, the Fife Flyers. They did put out a statement. I don't know the full details of what happened here and what was said, or I wouldn't reiterate it anyway, no matter what it is. But the Fife Flyers did have to come out this past weekend and make a statement that basically highlighted the fact that they wanted to reinforce that offensive behaviour on social media or personal attacks towards players, staff, or staff, I should say, will not be tolerated. The Five Flyers encourages healthy debate on social media platforms. However, if this crosses the line into personal abuse towards staff or volunteers, coaching staff, or players, it will not be tolerated in any form, and the club will take action deemed necessary. This past weekend, unfortunately, such an incident did occur where said line was crossed, and the club will now launch a full investigation into the comments made, and the perpetrator will receive a lengthy ban from the Five Flyers matches as a result. Five Flyers are a club that prides itself on being the heart of the Fife community and celebrates inclusivity and respect. When comments are made that are completely unacceptable, the club will have an absolute zero tolerance approach. Now, I did see a comment at the past weekend, but I don't know if this is the comment that they're talking about. But the comment didn't come from a Five Flyers fan. It came from a fan from another part of the league, and it was a bit. It was very inappropriate towards coaching staff member, but I don't know if that was the one. I don't know if that's what was picked up. Again, I don't know the full story about this, but I
yeah,
think it's worth saying that it does seem to be toxic. And as I mentioned before, heated rivalry, friendly banter, friendly rivalry is fine, but as you said, Dave, I mean, you know, comments on social media, you might think
yeah,
you're a keyboard warrior, and you might think it's you're being tough and big, whatever it is, writing whatever you want to do behind your keyboard, but it'll come back and bite you.
yeah, yeah.
And things there does have to be consequences to things that are said.
I think that the league as a whole need to sort of think about that as well. At the end of the day, there is people that disagree, but it is a family sport. There's an awful lot of families go to these games, and they are big chunks of the community, especially in that up in that part of Scotland, and even and in Belfast as well. Um, there's an element of if that starts to creep in more and more and more, it'll get harder to root out. Um, as the seasons go on,
Mm-hmm.
and when they start making personal attacks on people who, especially staff and coaching staff. These guys are, they're people at the end of the day, and if I got that sort of abuse at work, you'd be phoning the police. Like you wouldn't be sitting back and having it. No, you wouldn't take it.
No,
And these people are because they're in a um, you know minority in the public eye, they're getting hurled abuse at. It's just not fair.
no. And again, what we would say, one thing we would state would obviously be for anybody who's listening, and we'd hope to think the people who are listening and are mostly a similar mind to ourselves and know when the line when at the cross line and know where to stop. Yourself from saying something wrong, but just think about what you are saying and how much of an impact that can have and how that can follow you, no matter how old you think that tweet or that comment on
Exactly. Yeah.
Instagram or Facebook might be. It does have an
Yeah. If you
impact at the end of the day.
if you're not willing to stand over it and say it to the person face to face, then just don't say
And if you're going to go into the political career in Northern Ireland, it's
it.
it's not a political podcast, but it's topical anyway. Dave, I think that is it for stories for this part
I think
of
you're
the
right. Yeah.
show for this period. So with that, what we'll do is we will move swiftly on to our period two of hockey.
Hello and welcome back for period two. This is where we'll talk about hockey from around the world. And today, I don't believe we're talking about Evander Kane,
Nope.
because I didn't go looking for anything because I couldn't be bothered talking about him. But I guarantee there's something out there, and if you find it, tweet me it, and I'll add it in next podcast. Um, but yes, so there's a few things we want to cover off. But I will start with mine because we talked about it briefly in the opener. With the Arizona Phoenix Coyotes, Arizona Coyotes, what are they called now?
Arizona Canucks, yep.
Uh, Arizona Coyotes. Um, we know that they've had issues with the town city that they're based out of and their tax bill that they keep forgetting to pay and delay pay and whatever they're currently done on it. And they're looking to build a new home arena. Um, and as of today, yes, today,
Yep.
um, it has been announced or reported on a few networks. The particular article that we're referring to is from Sportsnet in Canada, that they are in negotiations with Arizona State University um, to use their multi-purpose 5,000 seater arena to play their games out of for the next 3 to 4 years until their new arena is built. That is nuts.
I you sent this through obviously before the episode onto our group chat, and I was in the middle. I was in the middle. I was in the kitchen in the middle of cooking, and I lifted up and I read the thing, and I was like, and I sat down, and then I lifted my phone again and had a double check, and I was like, is that what? Is that right? Because I looked at the seating capacity, and I was thinking to myself, and I think John mentioned this. I think he mentioned it in the response. He was like, how can an NHL team have a like lower capacity arena than an elite ice hockey league team? You know what I mean? It's crazy. It is
Yeah.
unbelievable. I mean, how the NHL. I, I
It's
guess.
baffles. It baffles. And the scary thing is, so the current official lowest capacity in the NHL is the Canadian Life Centre in Winnipeg at 15,294 seats. So that would be 1/3 of that. That is crazy. And the
Yeah.
Coyotes, right? The Coyotes, bearing in mind they are the third lowest attended team with an average of 11,575 per game. So they could fill that arena twice. That's crazy. So that puts them above the Ottawa Senators and the Buffalo Sabres currently. Um, but 5,000, like, what are they going to be charging per ticket?
It's that's I mean if one thing will be clear though is that they will be one of the most sought after tickets
Oh yeah.
in the NHL only because they haven't got enough seats to basically cover the amount of people who want to go to one game. I mean, it's an interesting take, because I would like to see what the NHL Players Association and the NHL themselves in terms of like, what's their take on the fact that it's okay, the rink itself, the ice pad will meet the standard that they need for to play a game on it. That's fine, okay, but in terms of capacity, in terms of
Um,
facilities, in terms of
Match
everything else, is there
nights, yeah, match night
yeah
experience and all that.
yeah is there a certain standard that is supposed to be set within the NHL that they will have to make sure they meet? Um, it's an interesting though to think, obviously that this arena that they're going to be is an NCAA division team that actually plays out of this arena and this venue. So the whole thing is around like things like the dressing rooms, training facilities, etc. Is there going to be an additional? I think this piece talks about it. It talks about that the Coyotes would have to construct their own team specific areas
Hmm.
as part of it, which would cost the Coyotes a lot of money. I think they're talking around about $15 million to $20 million, just to bring it up to spec to where they needed to be. I mean, it's it is what
There,
it is. I mean, is it
yeah,
going to happen? You know?
you never know, and obviously they'll need to do something if they decide that they're going to go. If they get approval for this new arena, they will need to find something to do. Um, whether whether they do this move or not, it's hard to say. Um, but what would be I can't see any advantage to them doing it other than they don't leave Arizona. Um, I don't see, yes, okay, there's an argument for, the maybe they'll create scarcity with their tickets and make the products more sought after, possibly. But all I think they'll do is they'll give them a sort of a feel of not being NHL anymore,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. And it could have the opposite impact, that they could end up not selling out a 5,000 seats arena because people are like, well, why would I go to the college to watch an NHL game? Sort of tarnish the game night experience a bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
You never
Uh,
know.
it'd
You
be
never know.
it'd be interesting. Obviously, I think this piece, and I think there was the rumors have been obviously this was just a temporary move until a more permanent fixture was put in place for, um, you know, for the team. But the Coyotes are really having a real struggle at this time. I mean, we've talked about it in previous podcasts. How likely is it that they continue any longer than maybe next season? Are they at risk of
Yeah.
dropping out of the NHL completely? Would
Well,
this move to a 5,000 seat arena, even if it is temporary, place almost like a final nail in the coffin for the team, or does it suit them better because they'll make sure they have capacity, and as you say, maybe the ticket price will just be slightly higher, even if the arena that they're going to be using is maybe less of a high spec standard than what fans are already used to.
it's yeah, it's going to be time will tell. What, in my opinion, they really should take sort of the bull by the horns and decide. Obviously, we don't know whether this new arena in Tempe is even going to get approval. This is still up in the air. John mentioned it in the last podcast that they were still waiting for some of the approvals to come in,
Mm.
and it's still waiting so far. Still hasn't been confirmed. Um, but as far as I'm aware, they're going for more of a um, sort of sports city. I think they're going near the American football stadium and stuff. So we'll see what where it all pans out. But if the approval doesn't come through, best thing for Phoenix at this stage, or Arizona at this stage, is to up sticks. Plenty of
Yeah.
places will take a franchise even for a couple of years. If you're lifting the franchise and moving it somewhere, really doesn't take much. And even if they were to do it for, 2 or 3 seasons while that rink gets built, they can always move
Yep.
back.
Yep. Indeed.
And it can test the market for the NHL as well. If they move to, um, I don't know, Kansas or Quebec, and if it works, they sell, then it's basically a proven hockey market then for an expansion again. Um, all right, that is my contribution to this week's podcast. So
Yeah, I'll cover off the rest if you want. I think there's
that'll do.
one or two. I think there's one from John which we'll cover in a few minutes, but I'll take mine. I'll start with mine first. I'm going to start with the story, obviously, that came out this week. It was just announced yesterday, actually, the 26th of January, and that is obviously the announcement that Patrick Alvin it was officially been named the Canucks GM. He'll be the 12th GM in Vancouver Canucks history. He will be effectively leaving Pittsburgh Penguins to take on this position. Uh, Patrick is obviously he will become the second European NHL GM, just behind the Columbus Blue Jackets boss Jarmo Kekalimin. I don't know how to say his surname. John, where
John
are
usually
you?
does this first.
I know. Obviously, Alvin started his career as a European scout with Montreal in 2002-2003 before joining Pittsburgh in 2006-2007. He was promoted to the Director of European Scouting in 2012-13, and he's been the Director of Amateur Scouting in 2017 and 18, as well as the Assistant GM in 2020 and 2021. Alvin will fill in for Jim Rutherford as interim GM last year before Ron Hextall took over. So this will be his first official GM gig in the NHL, and this will be an interesting move then for him to take on a full GM position up there in Vancouver. So hopefully he makes his statement quite quickly and it works for him. And also that the Canucks can make use of that and that new signing. So that's the first story that caught my attention. I say that was yesterday that was announced. My next one, obviously, this would have probably been something that Aaron would have brought to the table if he had have been here, but unfortunately he's not. And that is obviously that the Flyers player Keith Yandle this week broke a NHL record, having played 965 games back-to-back straight games since 2009. So he's the first player obviously to reach that figure, breaking the previous figure, which was 964, I believe. Obviously, if he's now broke that one. The NHL they obviously recorded as an Iron Man, as they call it. I suppose he broke that record after playing the Islanders this past weekend. The date, as I say, did start on the 26th of March 2009. Which was his third season in the NHL. He did pass Doug Jarvis, who was the previous record holder for that, who didn't miss a single season game from October 8th, 1975 to October 10th, 1987. But that was across multiple teams. This is for singular teams. The interim coach, Mike Yeo, spoke highly about Yandel setting the new mark. He did say it's an incredible accomplishment. Number one, you have to love the game. You have to battle through sickness, injuries, a level of professionalism to come to the rink every day and be ready to go. Great teammate, and he thought it was a hell of a game tonight. So he had to have a good game. But there you go.
Love a bit of Mike Yeo, to say the truth. Like.
Yeah, he does hold that position. Another record breaker right behind him is Phil Kessel, who is 34, has the second longest streak, which is at 941 games. So it'll be time will tell if he will hold on to that spot for much longer. So he is close on his tail, Phil Kessel. So hopefully, as long as Phil doesn't get injured or sick in the next coming few weeks, he might actually surpass that mark. You never know. Time will tell. I suppose the difference will be that obviously the difference is that the Yandel has been with the Flyers for such a long time, and a lot of those games were played with that one team rather than moving around. So time will tell. We'll see if at the end of the season we'll be talking again about another broken record. And that's that story. The last story I have is courtesy of John, and it's just a quick mention, really. This past week, the St. Louis Blues did retire the jersey of Chris Pronger. This was obviously a ceremony that was waiting to happen. He is a great player. He's one of the greats of all time within ice hockey, and he's been known as so. But I think what really struck John, or what caught John, and what caught the attention of a lot of people is that during his acceptance speech, or during his talk with it, he downed a beer as he was drinking it, as he was coming into do his speech. So fair play to him. He opened up a Bud. I think it was Bud Light. Well, we'll call it beer in inverted commas. I was just downing it as he was giving his speech as his jersey was retired. So fair play to one of the greats, and it was good to see his jersey being retired.
I was just watching the video there. It's pretty cool.
We do have, Dave, before we leave this period, I suppose we do have one last part, which is obviously in our penalty box segment. So if you're happy enough, what we'll do is maybe have a chat about the penalty box segment before we move on to period 3.
That sounds good, yeah. If I can get it open. Oh, here we go. It wasn't opening for me.
I'll just throw up our little funny thing for our YouTube fans here. Wrong one. Ha, ha, ha. I forgot we made a little penalty box overlay. No, not overlay. In I can't remember what they're called.
Video.
Video. Yeah, we call them videos. There's a more technical term for YouTube videos whenever you add them in. Anyway, someone will tell us. Um, Dave, we have one story, one DOPS assessment that has taken place, and actually this was announced this morning, January 27th, here in the UK, and that is obviously, of course, I don't know if you've seen this hit. If you haven't, have a quick watch of it. But this is Sabres goalie Aaron Dell has been suspended for 3 games for a hit that injured Drake Batherson. Drake Batherson was obviously named to the All-Star weekend coming up, and he's obviously had to come out due to injury, and he's going to be replaced. There's a point where it's an unexpected and shoulder check from Dell, in a situation that looks, when you watch it back, you can see that it is a hit that takes him by surprise, and he travels at high speed into the boards behind him. He did suffer a high ankle sprain. Yeah, I'm guessing you just watched it. He is
Yeah.
expected to be out quite long term, and Ottawa's leading goal scorer. He is Ottawa's leading goal scorer, 13 goals and 34 points in 31 games so far this season. And he was, as I mentioned, selected to the NHL All-Star game. He's going to be replaced by Brad Tushuk due to the injury. I mean, if you look at
That's
this, I
desperate.
mean,
Look.
it's a really bad call. I mean, the thing is, when you look at it, you're not expecting a goalie to make a hit like this. But the fact that the goalie does come out to play the puck, he clearly looks up ice. He looks up ice. He does see, he does see Batherson coming up towards him, and he just puts his shoulder. Well, when I say puts his shoulder, he puts his shoulder in, and I mean turns his body right in. And my take on it from watching the video, especially when you watch the slow mo, you can clearly see that Batherson is doing a large angle, or trying to do a large angle to go around
Yeah.
Dell. Like, and you can see him curve
Dell
around to
walks
try and
into
get
it
around,
now.
and Dell just walks into it. He just thinks he's just looking at it and going to himself, "I'm stopping him in his tracks." And he throws that shoulder right round in quite a aggressive way, and yeah, Batherson just loses control, and hits those boards at quite a high speed, high impact speed. I
It's
mean,
and
three
it's
game.
it's also not
Sorry,
the
Dave.
first time Dell's done this. So he's done it in bunch of times in his career. He's known to be a very physical goalie. That's something we sort of know about him, but he does seem to take that into his own hands as it goes on. I think there's at least 2 or 3 more occasions where it's happened. I'll see if I can find the videos. Actually found one here. Over the years, he seems to have sort of been. There's one in September 2019 when he played for um, the Sharks
Mm-hmm.
against the Knights. He done something very similar, um, but instead of it being so close to the net, it's actually out near the trapezoid. And the same thing, it's Mark Stone is trying to swing around him, and he just doesn't see him, steps into him, and leaves Stone. The exact same thing, just flails into the boards because the one Stone doesn't have the puck, so it's it's an interference call, and he is chasing down the puck. It's a free puck in the behind the goalie, and he just
Mm.
steps in, shoulder charge, takes him out. And then there's one in December 2018 where he uh, trips a Calgary Flames player as he skates past him to get a free puck in the corner. And I think based on that, now he didn't get any bans for those, but like I found that on a quick YouTube search.
Mm.
The ops should take all that into account and should be making a marker on him. You can't have, yes, goalies are players too, and they can get involved, but they can only get involved within their own remit. If they want to go and check a player to get the puck off him, feel free, but don't complain if you get checked back when you have the puck.
Yep.
So yeah, 2 games, very soft. Um, one based on how that hit looks, it looks nasty. And two, it's not a first offence. As much as he hasn't got banned for any of it, it's definitely not his first time that this has happened in his career, that he's taken the decision into his own hands and taken out a player. So hopefully the actually it looks like there's one this season as well against the Nashville Preds, where he checked the guy along the boards. So
Yep.
all this should be taken into consideration. He's a and out of the four I found on a quick search, three of them, in my opinion, were illegal, including not including the one he done that got him the ban. And they should take that into account. Should be more than three. He should
Oh,
be made to think about what he's done. Really, basically a naughty child.
I
Because that's the
agree.
only
I
way they're going to
mean,
work it out.
I agree. I think. I mean, it's rare. It is rare that we see such aggressive play from a goalie. We don't see it often, and we do when we do see play from goalie like this, it's usually more of a subtlety, a subtle kind of move, or a subtle kind of interference or whatever it might
Yeah,
be.
or a
But
nice poke check on a puck, or something like that.
yeah, but in this case, it was so blatant. That 3 games for me, okay, some people will say that's actually enough, and he was fined as well. But I don't know. I kind of say I kind of get what you say, Dave, in terms of the feeling as well. Is that there does seem to be a history. There seems to be this seems to be a consistent thing with them. And yeah, I think maybe a slightly longer, higher, maybe just even another 2 games, maybe 5 game ban
Uh,
altogether. I
fi-
don't know.
5 game ban, or even if like, I know 1 game's nothing, but there's a logical thing where you see 3 games, it doesn't feel like a big ban, but as soon as you get the 4, 5, or 6, they're looking like
Hmm.
proper significant bans. Um,
Yeah,
but yeah, again, I think it's become the mantra for this episode is the time will tell if it actually makes a difference. If he comes out of this 3 games and then first thing he does is wipe someone out, then it didn't work. Or
yeah,
if he ends the rest of his career without doing it, then happy days. um,
indeed.
it's all within his control. And as a goalie, he's probably in a better position not to hurt players than
Yep.
any other player on the ice. If he plays smart and doesn't do anything stupid and doesn't take it into his own hands, he'll not hurt anyone. It's very unlikely that he'll accidentally, you know, do a check in the wrong way and injure someone as a goalie. So it's all in his hands, and hopefully it all works out and your man's ankle doesn't gets better soon and all that. But ankle injuries in hockey are a good idea.
Nope. It could be a long term, and also I think more devastating is the fact obviously he gets taken out of the All Star game, which is coming up quite soon. Actually, at the end of this month, I think is it next weekend? I think potentially
Yeah,
it's
I
usually the end
think
of
it's
January.
right.
So okay, that's it. That's that, Dave. I
Yep,
think
I
that's
think
the end of
that's everything, isn't it? Yeah.
that's it.
Okay, I think that's us. We'll round up. That's us rounding up period 2 of hockey.
And with John absent this week, I will take over hosting duties for period three. Period three is our general Nocky news. This is the period where we just talk about any other stories that have hit the headlines or are getting our attention just across the world of hockey, be that anywhere at all in this world. I'm going to start off, Dave, with I suppose, a pretty heavy story to start with. But it's worth we have to talk about it because obviously it has hit the headlines on all major news channels. We've had obviously NHL stars comment on this, and we are seeing as a result as well on the hockey news as well. It was released tonight was that the player in question has received a lengthy ban as a result of the incident that did happen. But not only that, we're also seeing two instance of a similar vein. I suppose they kind of instead of being so vague about it, I suppose let's talk about what that is. We talk about a lot in ice hockey and the NHL themselves as well, and right across the board. And we just had a Pride weekend, and Pride weekend, not just a Pride weekend for LGBTQ, but we also talk about hockey is for everyone. We talk about equality as part of that. We talk about race, and we talk about everything else. And this is a poor example of, or an example of why, I suppose I should say, this is a good example of the reasons why the NHL and the likes of other leagues across the world do what they do in terms of trying to promote equality across the sport, and how they try to really drive home that this sport is for everyone. And this is obviously a minor league hockey game, which took place in the East Coast Hockey League, so the ECHL, Jacksonville Icemen and the South Carolina Stingrays in Florida. Where there was a incident where Iceman defenseman Jacob Panetti or Panetta was gesturing at the Stingrays Jordan Subban. Now, if Jordan Subban's name sounds familiar, that is because he is the younger brother of New Jersey Devils defenseman PK Subban. As what happened, if you watch the video, which we would say, we don't condone obviously what has happened, but it's worth to see, is that it was a what has been deemed as a racist monkey gesture towards obviously Jordan Subban, who is a black player. The incident took place this past weekend. However, I suppose I suppose some arguments were made in that Panetta then came onto his own personal Twitter, his own personal social media, and said that his actions were not racially motivated in any way, that he was just taunting with a tough guy bodybuilder like gesture towards Subban. Now, I don't know if, you know, I don't know if that's true or not. And the fact that Panetta took down his post shortly after putting it up would indicate that maybe he maybe is taking maybe a bit of maybe taking a bit of responsibility for the fact that maybe he was lying. I don't know. We don't know. We can only surmise what was happening. PK did come out and said it did come out on his own personal Twitter with a comment that just said, "They don't call the East Coast League the jungle because my brother and other black players are the monkeys. Hey Jacob Panetta, you shouldn't be so quick to delete your tweets or your Instagram account. As you'll probably play again. That's what history will tell us." And he did post it, and he did say that it was an unbelievable thing to do. He did come out then and make a further statement, just saying that obviously that it was that he believes it was racially motivated, and no apology will ever work. Pineda, as I say, he did apologize for his actions, but they were removed for whatever reason he did. Now, as a result of this, and after this happening, as of this evening, I think it was actually only 2 hours ago that this was announced, the ECHL has reached a verdict on Jacob Pineda and the incident, and they have announced that they have suspended the player for 38 games, which means it's the remainder of the regular season in the ECHL. I mean, I did read, but I don't know. I can't find if this is. I don't know if there's any real thing to this, because the only place I read this was on for strangely the only place I read the story that any additional part of this was on the Daily Mail website, which is really weird to see Daily Mail talk about ice hockey. But they've stated that he's been released by his team, but did we see any official statement coming from their team to say
Um,
that he's been released?
I didn't see anything. I just seen the thing about the suspension. And you know the Daily Mail, they're a special breed of news. Um, so that might be just to get people to click on it. But yeah, I haven't seen any further on that other than the being suspended till the end of the regular season.
Regular season. I mean, as I mentioned, this is the second racial attack or second racial incident to happen in professional hockey in the past 2 weeks. Similarly in the AHL, San Jose Barracuda forward Christoph Herbrick, he has received a 30-game ban for a direct racial gesture towards the Tuscan Roadrunners forward Bogos Imama. During a game on that night, there was a racial slur sent his direction, which has earned him a suspension. As I say, it's 30 games for directing that gesture towards the player. I mean, I don't want to sound like it's rife at the moment, but it does seem to be a common story that we've talked about over the last few months. There just
Yeah,
seems
because
to
there's
be a
one at the
lot
start of the
more.
season as well, wasn't there,
There
in
was.
Belarus or something?
Yep.
Um, it's disgusting, and it's hard to see this happening in just now. Like these things just seem, yeah, they do a load of work to try and root this out, and then people do this sort of thing, and it's hard to quantify, and it's as a you know being whiter than white that I am, it's hard for to be in those players' shoes, that how they uh, have to deal with this day and daily, and it just gives me so much pride to see how well these guys are playing, even though they're having to go through all this stuff in the background, just to play a game they love,
Yep.
and hopefully with the continued work with the Hockey is for Everyone, and that they're cracking down hard on these people, that we can get these racists out of sport. And it's we know that we bang on about there's no place for them and all this, but somehow they keep coming back. And I know that the sport can only do so much. This is obviously a cultural thing that these people are being brought up in. And there needs to be a hell of a lot more done, and obviously that now spans international politics, and that needs to be addressed. It's not a single country thing or a single sport thing. This is happening, unfortunately, everywhere,
Yep.
and in every sport, and it's sickening to see that it's still happening in 2021 or 22.
Indeed, exactly.
Uh,
I mean, in a joint statement, San Jose Barracuda and the Sharks Association as well, the Sharks organization as well, did put out a statement that did state both the Barracuda and San Jose Shark organizations were appalled to learn of the incident that occurred. We offer our sincerest apologies to BOCO, the Roadrunners organization, the AHL, our fans, and the entire hockey community. While we support the ability for individuals to atone and learn from disrespectful incidents in this context, these actions are in direct opposition to the Barracuda and Sharks organisational values. In connection with the NHL's league-wide effort to foster an inclusive culture in hockey, the San Jose Sharks and San Jose Barracuda will partner with the Respect Group to launch a series of training and workshops for personnel and all players. So obviously they're making amends and they're making steps to try and bring in some kind of form of awareness raising, which can only be a good thing. But um, I mean, it's as you said, and as we've talked about, it just seems to be that it just you can't imagine how difficult it must be,
yeah.
to be a black player in a professional sport, to think you're at a professional level that isn't going to happen, to then at your workplace almost as you're doing your job
Yeah.
getting
Yeah.
racial abuse hurled at you. It's just not on. It's just not on
No,
at all.
and I can only imagine what it would be like to walk a mile in their shoes. But I think that they're made of sterner stuff than I would be. And as I said, I applaud all the black players in sport that have to go through this, but continue to strive forward to be beacons of their community.
Yep, yep. I'm going to move on from that story, and I'm going to finish off this period with two pretty good stories, two cheerier stories, shall we say? The first one I'm going to raise was put through from Aaron, even though he's not here. He did send us through to us to look at. And this is this past weekend, the Hershey Bears had their teddy bear toss. Now, I don't know if it's just that the teddy bear toss was this past night, was late, because normally, obviously, the teddy bear toss does usually happen around Christmas time, but they usually have the Hershey Birds always do this around an annual charity game in Pennsylvania, and it happened this past weekend. It has set a new world record for the number of stuffed animals that have been thrown on the ice. More than 52,300 stuffed animals of all shapes and sizes were thrown from the stands seconds after the first goal of the game between the Hershey Bears and Primary Development Club for the NHL, who are the primary, NHL, the Western Capitals. I read that straight off a page there, and I didn't read it properly. They're playing against the Hartford Wolfpack. And so basically, yeah, I mean, if you haven't seen it, if you haven't seen the scenes, we would totally suggest either going on our website later on and look at the video, or check out on Twitter and just search for the Hershey Bears teddy bear toss for 2022, as it is. I mean, it is ridiculous. I've never seen anything like it. Like, we've seen it before. I mean, I think these guys had the previous record, um, but this is something else. I mean, and what we should put in context is, if you think about the number of birds that I just said were thrown onto the ice. So what did I say? I said there was 52,000, roughly
Yeah.
52,300 birds, and the attendance for the game was 10,500. Uh, I mean, crazy, crazy. Um,
It's always amazing to see like the Giants do it, and it's fun and all, but see when you see it in these places, it's like just waves of teddy bears coming down, and it just seems to keep going and going and going. It's unreal. And then there's a video, isn't there, with one of the players. There's that many. He goes and jumps into it at one point.
yeah,
It's just crazy.
it's unbelievable, but yeah, I'd definitely say it's worth a watch, especially if you just want to see, if you want to give yourself a smiles, because it is such a fun to watch. We should mention that as part of the club, it's part of the club's initiative called the Bears Cares Initiative, which highlights teams, just activities and volunteer efforts that they obviously then will donate those stuffed animals to more than 25 different local organisations in and around the area. This includes county children's youth organisations, boys and girls groups of America and Hasburg, the Lions Club's Autism Society in the Greater Harrisburg area, Children's Medical Network, as well as a number of different hospital areas as well. So they will all go to good places. But yes, it's just amazing. And again, just another good example of what the Hershey Birds do. For as part of their community there, because we do talk about the Hershey Bears, I feel like, quite a lot for the stuff that they do. Um, Last story for this period, for period three, and this is one actually that caught my attention. And I kind of wanted to bring it in. This is actually from a small league in the states called the SPHL, which I think is the Southern Pacific Hockey League, if I remember correctly, for the SPHL. This is for a team called the Quad City Storm, who are basically, every year, I didn't realize they did this, and it was something that was very different. Now, we've talked in the past about different things that teams do, and we talked last episode all about the efforts that one of the teams in the states went to for their annual Pride Night, and they painted the ice with obviously the Pride colours. They had the rainbow and everything in the colours, and we've seen it previously with the same team, and we've seen with other teams where, when it comes to Hockey Fights Cancer Nights, they will paint the ice rink pink, or a special jersey or whatever that might be. Now, the Quad City Storm, obviously last year, I don't think they were able to do it because of COVID regulations, because obviously COVID stopped everything. So the last video I was able to find of this was 2019. But this is an annual tradition that the Quad City Storm have started doing, and that is their annual Fights Cancer Night. And what they do is they invite fans of the team to come down to the rink and paint the name of a friend or loved one who has either battled cancer, or has lost their battle with cancer, and to put their names on and a gesture or something onto the ice, which will then be flooded after they've painted it on, and it will remain on the ice for that whole game, for the Hockey Fights Cancer Night. I just thought, I seen this and I got chills when I seen it, and when I watched the video on Facebook, on their Facebook page, and I watched the footage from 2019, and seeing all of the people just on there, you know, painting those names on, making memorials towards people who have passed away or people who have survived cancer. It's just something different, and I just thought, yes, you can see, you've got the pink ice and you've got whatever it is, but there's just something about this that just, two things:
Yeah,
made it very personal, very very personal, and secondly, it really pulled in a very community atmosphere. You can tell that this team is heart of a community, and
yeah.
I think that really shines through. And there was
That's
a
it.
there was a link. Unfortunately, the link didn't work, Dave. Because there was a link. If you go and search it, you will see it. There's a drone shot, or like a shot taken from, obviously from ceiling down over the ice. And when you see the whole thing from the ceiling down, it's out of this world. It looks fantastic. And I just think this is a really good idea. And I think others should maybe steal a similar idea and maybe do something similar. And but at least obviously give Quad City Storm their kudos for coming up with this first.
Yeah, no, that's it's just something special. I was looking at it there. It's um, almost brought a bit of a tear to my eye. It's such a lovely way to um, put across your own personal tributes to people who've survived or have passed from cancer. Because I know that everybody has some sort of interaction with the unfortunate disease, and it is a very personal thing, but it's a nice way to share that with your community. Um, you know, people who have survived or people who have passed, and it means that you can sort of build support from that community as well. There is a like yes, the hockey fights cancer and the Pink the Rink and all that do a great. It's a great way to raise money, but sometimes it's not just about the money; it's about the people. And this is a lovely way to see it. It's great. It's a brilliant idea.
Yeah, I think that's a really good story to end period three on our Knocky news on. And so, with that, we will move on to our next segment for this show. Normally, tradition states we would usually move on to our star competition for this episode, but we don't have anything pulled together, and because there's only a depleted team, and there's only me and Dave,
Did
we
you
don't
did you
have
win
anything.
last week's or last
I was
podcast?
just about to say I will talk about last week's. We did we did have our star competition last episode. Um, Dave, you nominated Jackson Whissel from the Belfast Giants. John, he nominated Lewis Hook as well from the Belfast Giants, and I nominated Nadia Popavi, who was the lady who discovered the cancerous growth on the back of the coach's neck from the bench, and obviously then
Yeah.
she saved his life in some ways. And I nominated her, and that is the winner for last week. So I get to hold on to the Door 14
Well
star
deserved.
trophy.
After as soon as you announced who you were picking, I was like, "Well, that's me done."
Yeah, I was kind of thinking, if anybody else picks that over someone who actually saved someone's life, what are they thinking?
Yeah, there's something wrong with
Um,
it.
but as I say, we haven't had a chance to put together a stars for this week, and obviously then we are short benched, so we don't have anything for this week in terms of our star segment. So what we will do is we'll just move on to our final segment for this episode, which is our overtime segment. Okay, our overtime segment is just anything else to wrap up this episode. That might be in the form of a story, it might be in the form of something we want to mention, or it might be in the form of taking questions from you guys or any questions that have come in through our social media channels. There is two bits, Dave, that I want to bring up in this section. First one is a question that we received that someone wants to get our thoughts on, and the second one I will talk at the end about. So we'll start off with the question that came in from our Twitter account, and this is from a good friend of ours. I know John has had a chat with this guy previously as well, and I know he listens quite well. And we listen to a lot of his stuff too, and it is Banners on the Wall. Um, he sent in a question to pose to us, well, me and you, I suppose, because there's only the two of us this week. But he is asking, the question he's asking is three players, three junior players, currently playing obviously in the NIHL. Bailey Herwood, Jack Hopkins, and Brandon Whissel. Three great players, each with their own having their own standout performances this season. He wants to know, out of those three players, who do we see will debut for the GB senior team first? Um,
Whew. Yeah, that's
so
a tough one.
I'll go first, only because I think I'll go first just because I've been thinking about this and when the question came in, and I think I'd already been thinking about this prior. For me, I mean, I suppose the senior team who hasn't debuted out of these three, I mean, Brandon Whissel for me has had a almost like a resurgence, almost like a I don't know if I want to say like he's just had this. I don't know if it's just been this change, this confidence build. He has he's been into another gear right now. Playing for the Telford Tigers, the Leeds Knights, in the EIHL. 37 games for the Telford Tigers, with 50, with yes, 37 games, 22 goals, 37 assists, 24 penalty minutes. I mean, total points 59, 57 points last season for the Leeds Knights. He's had a stellar season and a stellar breakout from, obviously, he had a rocky start. Obviously, he's brought in as part of, I don't know if it was like a brothers agreement,
two for one deal.
2-for-1 deal with the Sheffield Steelers back in 2018-19 when both him and Jackson were playing for the Sheffield Steelers. Um, but he came into a lot of fire back then, and I think his confidence probably hit quite a lot as well. Just around things like his fitness and his ability, I think was came into a lot of fire, and a lot of fans are quite aggressive towards things that were said about him. But he's really came to form over the definitely over this last 2 seasons. And I did see that I think the Sheffield Steelers did have picked him up again for the last for at least 4 games so far this season. And he's had 1 assist there while he's with them. But I mean, stellar player, I think, in terms of the position that he's playing in. Um, you know, I don't know. The other player for me, I'd say so. For me, I think Brandon Whissel, I think is bound to show up at some point. I mean, given his age, he is slightly older than the other two. He is 24. Jack Hopkins is 17, and Bailey is 18. So I think maybe a bit more, a bit more not maturity, a bit more chances to develop, I suppose,
Yeah.
for those two before we see them coming in. Obviously, both those players playing for elite league teams, covering up maybe injury cover or whatever it might be. Bailey Hardwood with the Cardiff Devils and Jack Hopkins with the Nottingham Panthers. Your thoughts?
I'm going to be leaning very, very much similar. And unfortunately, part of that is because I've seen more video of Brandon.
Yeah.
Um, and he is definitely, even when his fitness didn't seem to be quite there, but that whenever he first started playing for Sheffield, and he did get a bit of unfair scrutiny, um, but he didn't really help himself either. Then but now he looks like a changed man. I think he deserves a call up. Um, when we've seen him play recently in highlights and things, he's been very good. And because we have a bias because of the sort of the Whissel family having such a big connection with Belfast.
Mm-hmm.
You always keep an eye whenever you see him pop up. You see it and sort of takes your attention a bit more. It'll be I think he will be an ideal choice to make the next step. What I would say is bringing it back a bit closer to home. Our own Mac Stewart, who's obviously a good few years off getting anywhere near the GB level, but being 17, have been getting decent ice time with the Giants and has played 11 games for the Leeds Knights with an assist, and he's still fairly early doors, and it's a testament to the sort of the dream that Thorts had when he came in as head of hockey operations to look at homegrown talent, and obviously the son of Stewart Rob Stewart, our assistant coach. He's from solid hockey pedigree, and I think he's going to do really well in the years to come. And hopefully he gets the time to grow as a player. And then Beatty, I forgot his first name. Cal? No. Cal Beatty?
Beatty? Yep.
KBD, one of the two. He a defenseman who's been playing for the Giants on and off this year. It's obviously my teal tinted spectacles, but the Giants, Belfast and Northern Ireland for years struggled after the loss of some of the veteran talent of Mark Morrison and Walton. Forgot his name there for a second. It was there was not really a huge influx of local talent and having to rely so much on the mainland for that. And hopefully, like it's still early doors, but hopefully these guys really do get the time they deserve and then can um, make that move.
Yeah, I mean, we should note obviously, Jack Hopkins, is one of the players that has been named to the under 18s GB team, Great Britain team for the upcoming World Championships in 2022. But he is named on a team alongside four Belfast-born players for that under 18s team this year. Obviously, you've already mentioned Max Stewart's one, Kel Beatty's the other. He's also on the team as well for the under 18s. But also the two twin brothers in Belfast, the Hamill brothers,
Oh
Carter and
yes,
Cameron. They've also been named to the under 18s World Championship team. So four Belfast players, four Belfast-born hockey players joining the under 18s World Championship team, GB Hockey Championship team. For me, just feels like junior hockey or development hockey for in Belfast does seem to be starting to get a
there
bit strong, and it's good to see.
there was a massive shift. I know that there was a lot of talk of that shift with Thorts coming in, and he was over our development clubs as well as the Giants, which we didn't have before. Um, and it has given, I think, the Giants fans a bit more of appreciation for the junior game. I know it definitely has for me. I'd be more inclined now to look at the other leagues to try and keep out for eyes for local guys, just for that reason, you know. Um, and I think it's there we go. I finally found his stats there on League Prospects. There's 12 games for the Giants he's played with 2 assists um, for Mac. Like that's unreal.
Mm. Yep. It's fantastic, and he's been a great watch. This past season. And hopefully we'll see a lot more to come from those junior players and a bit more some more ice time in the years to come. Maybe those twin brothers will also join the Belfast group as well at some point in the near future too, and we'll get to see those as well. Dave, one last story, and then we'll round off this episode. And this is just well, it's not a story, but it's just I wanted to give a shout out really to Dave Sims from Sheffield. It's not usual. We talk about Dave Sims sometimes in a derogatory way, sometimes, or we criticize some of the things he's done in the past and some of the things that maybe he said in the
Good,
past. But
good friendly banter.
good friendly banter. At the end of the day, Dave, does do some positive things for the community. And he has done a number of different charity events over the past number of years to raise significant amounts of money. And again, he's doing another he's doing another sponsor. He's doing another round of sponsorship, another round of raising money for the Alzheimer's Society. Which is a charity which is very close to my heart. So I just wanted to give him a shout out for that. He is doing a sponsored walk in late March, and he has raised, as obviously had raised already, £1,200 towards that sponsorship. His story is there and his Just Giving page, and we will share that on our website as well as part of that, and we'll tweet that out. We should also mention as well and give a shout out to our friends Team McLean, who are supporting Simsy by. I don't know if you've seen this, but young Ethan has been doing a spot of pebble art or
Oh, I have
rock
seen
art.
these. These are class.
So he's been doing a bunch of them. He done the team mascots there. I seen those with each of the team mascots getting immortalized in pebbles and rocks. They look brilliant, really really good. And keep in mind this is Ethan doing this. Using his
It's
own
amazing. Yeah.
muscle, using his own energy to put as much effort into this. And if anybody doesn't know who Ethan is, Ethan's obviously a young fan of the Belfast Giants and a friend of ours who has a rare condition that means muscle degenerative condition. And so
He's
anything,
limited
the amount
mobility
of
in his
effort,
hands and things and all. So.
exactly. So the fact that he's putting so much effort into this, really, you
And
should
they
really
are
take note.
fantastic.
They, Brilliant.
Because
They are amazing.
whenever I seen them, I 100%. This is not me just picking it up. I 100% somebody had done them for him, and he was
Oh,
selling them
brilliant.
or sending them out. No, because they're all his. They are fantastic. It's just like another level.
Oh, they're brilliant. And he's done a special Be Mine rock art, which is obviously handmade by him, and they have put it up for bidding. The bidding on that will close on the 7th of February. So if anybody is interested in bidding for that, you still got some time to do so, and you can do that on just follow Team McLean on Twitter, and you can put your bid in for what you want. I think the current bid, the top bid, is £110, which is great. So that's all going to go to Simsy as part of his sponsorship for Alzheimer's Society. So just wanted to give that a bit of a shout out as before we ended the episode. Okay, Dave. It's been a bit of a strange one.
Yeah.
While
Jeez,
it's
we're under
while
2 hours.
but we're still able to keep it going for an hour and a half. But yeah, Dave, it was a bit of a strange one. But hopefully next episode in 2 weeks' time we will return to some form of normality with the other two faces back in the picture here, and that'll be our episode just before we go off on our adventures in Scotland for our double header. So I'm sure we'll be talking about that and looking forward to that weekend. I am going to close off the episode by doing our usual. So just give a shout out to our website at door14hockey.com, where you can check out previous episodes, look at the stories and old blogs that we have up there. You can also get in touch with us, give us your stories, tell us what's going on in the world of hockey, share your thoughts and opinions. Don't be afraid to let us know if we've got something wrong and correct us if we need to. You can do that on all of our social media channels, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Door14Hockey. Wherever you're listening to us, be that on a podcast, one of the podcast services, be that iTunes, Android, Apple, Google Play, whatever it is you're listening on, please give us a subscribe, give us a like, whatever that might be. Leave us a review. It helps with the algorithm or whatever it is, or it helps us anyway, kind of move up those channels. And if you want to, and you want to see our beautiful faces, you can check out our YouTube channel, where you can see now a video version of the podcast. I think that is everything for this episode. So with that, what we'll just do is sign off for this week. I'm Marty.
And Dave?
Have a great week.